I'm Bruce Pattinson from Total Education Centre, and this evening's lecture is going to be on the themes or ideas in The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald. Now, one of the themes is the American dream. So what is the American dream? It's money. It's about getting what you want. It's about having all those things fulfilled, all your desires. And it's about more money. And then more money again. It's always about the money. Oh, we're back now. I think we're over the money thing. Let's have a look at some of those themes and ideas in The Great Gatsby. I'm going to start with the American dream because I think most people who focus on the novel talk about that as the main thing. So what is that American dream? The American dream is that anyone can make it without regard for race, birth, or social status. Every individual has the opportunity to fulfill all their dreams, and if they work hard enough, they are successful. Well, I think Fitzgerald in the novel takes that idea and says, no, that's not correct, and places very little faith in this myth because let's look at Gatsby, for example. He has all the money that you could ever want. He has every material possession that any man could ever need, but he can't have the one thing that he really wants, which is Daisy's love. And that may seem insignificant in spite of all that money, but it's not. And I think that's the point Fitzgerald's making. Gatsby on the surface would be probably the best example of the American dream there was. The poor boy makes good. Gatsby introduced himself to Dan Cody and seems to get his money through some manipulations of that and how that happens. He's been employed. He wants to be better right from the very start. Gatsby doesn't want to be the poor farm boy. He wants to be something more. He's not part of that upper class society and will never fit into that society. What Gatsby shows us is that the dream does not really exist for the masses of poor men like Gatsby or the servants or the mechanic and his wife, the Wilsons in other words, or any of the servants that come about. George Wilson knows and thinks that if he works hard and just gets a break, everything will be all right. For example, the way he harasses Tom about the car to give him that one little break. The problem for both men in this is all their dreams revolve around Tom Buchanan, who is not the American dream. He's born into money. He comes from wealthy aristocracy and he ruins all their plans. And I think that's the main idea that Fitzgerald's focused on there. So that's the American dream. You can Google the American dream and you'll come up with all sorts of examples. What else is there? I wanted to talk also about love. And there are many different kinds of love in The Great Gatsby in many ways. And I suppose you could fold this into the idea of relationships in the novel. I think there are positive and negatives about love in the novel. I think the obsessive love that Gatsby has for Daisy is pure, but it also is obsessive in many ways. And whether you think that's a good thing or a bad thing, it doesn't matter. Gatsby bases his love on a relationship he had with Daisy 5 years previously, and she's not the same person, and they can never rekindle that love. The relation didn't turn out as he planned, and let's have a look at the quote that comes with that. He had intended probably to take what he couldn't go, but now he had found that he committed himself to the following of a grail. He knew that Daisy was extraordinary, but he didn't realise just how extraordinary a nice girl could be. He felt married to her. He becomes breathless when he sees her. And their initial relationship breaks up, not just because he goes to war, but because he's poor, basically. And so after the war, he tries to get back and come forward, but he doesn't. And then he finally makes it, and he tries to get her back, but she's materialistic, jaded, and superficial. She's not the girl he once knew. He can't recapture that pure love, and it's all gone. I think it's a very negative view of love in many ways from Fitzgerald. Perhaps it's a reflection of his own relationship with Zelda. Perhaps it's something else altogether. I don't know. You'd have to go back into the context and see what you think about that one. I think another love shown in the text is Daisy and Tom's love, and we see the great difference between Gatsby's love for Daisy and Tom's. Tom professes that he loves her, and they're not happy, but they're not unhappy. They're just existing, and I think it's that bleakness of wealth and the bleakness of money that links into the idea of the American dream that makes it so sad for both those characters. George and Myrtle Wilson is another love that's broken. Myrtle obviously, at some point, thought George was good enough to marry, but she's completely disillusioned with the poverty that they live in, and she becomes to conclude that he wasn't fit to lick my shoe, which is a pretty harsh quote. She has an affair with Tom, George realises, and the love's a powerful force for George, and he goes off and he kills Gatsby. He needs to act to do something. And there's the final love that I probably want to talk about is the relationship between Nick and Jordan. She's the classic example, as I suggested in characters, of moral failure, where wealth, social position and possessions are more important to Jordan than anything else. A seemingly wonderful catch for Nick. He just can't condone her lack of ethics and morality, and he says, "I'm 5 years too old to lie to myself and call it honour." Nick realises that true love must be based on the truth and some idea of fidelity, but Jordan is incapable of both. So love really flows right through the novel in all the different relationships, and you can see quite clearly that's an important theme that can also link back to the American dream. I'd like to suggest that the idea of appearances and impressions is also important in the novel, and the appearance people give and the impression that they give are completely different in some respects to what actually happens in the novel. Despite the novel being about Gatsby, for example, we don't actually meet him till the 3rd chapter, and until this point we only hear rumour about him, and the appearance of him is very different to many of the rumours. Gatsby is very interesting to find out what Nick thinks of him. He's trying to establish what type of impression the rumours are creating about him. When Nick is invited to one of Gatsby's parties, Nick's amazed at the number of people who have not been invited, and makes a point of explaining that he received an invitation because he thinks this is probably the right thing to do. No one else seems to care. No one else is worried about appearances, and we wonder why Nick is. Many of the relationships between the characters are built on appearances, not reality. Tom and Daisy's relationship is about appearances. There's some sort of love there, as we suggested in the last theme, but not really. She wants to feel loved. Tom gets love outside the relationship, as he does with Myrtle, but they keep up the appearance of making it right. The idea of that appearance and appearing to be something that you're not is particularly important to those characters, and it just ties in with the fakeness that they have of that sort of sense of regard. It's interesting when we go up, for example, to look at Gatsby's library and why there's so many books in the library, none of which have ever been read. And it's that impression that they're trying to create and trying to give that makes that so much important. Also, finally, we sort of talked about relationships, but you might want to have a think about the interaction between different characters and the relationships that they have. Only relationship that really works and is of any significance in the novel is probably the relationship between Nick and Gatsby, and that's ended by George, of course. The relationships are really shallow, they're hollow, they're superficial, they're based on material possessions, and you could also consider materialism of the 20s to be another thematic concern in the novel, where everybody wants more and they're grabbing stuff and everybody is doing things to excess, I suppose. So have a think about those kind of relationships and where the relationships sit, and you could chart those out as you go through the text, and you'll see that really it's only Nick and Gatsby that have any significance. So they're the basic themes in Gatsby that you can build on. That's given you a few ideas. You can always go to our module of work on the website, download that, and that will give you more and more information than I've been able to give you in this short lecture. So that's all for today. I'm Bruce Pattinson from Taylor Education Centre. Thanks for watching us, and I'll see you next lecture where we probably talk about language. Hi, I'm Bruce Pattinson from Taylor Education Centre, and I hope you're really enjoying this series on The Great Gatsby. Don't forget, for further information, have a look at our website. You'll find some wonderful things, and you'll have as much a good time as we are. Cheers to you.